Well, let's now go to the $100 million penalty that Optus has agreed to pay after admitting to unconscionable conduct when it sold services to people who it knew could not afford them and, in some cases, pursued those people with debt collectors. Optus admits the conduct happened when more than 400 customers, some with disabilities, others in Indigenous communities, were sold plans at 16 different stores between August 2019 and July 2023. Competition regulator the ACCC led the investigation, which does need to be ratified by the federal court. And earlier on, I spoke with the ACCC's Deputy Chair, Catriona Lowe.
This is a very significant penalty indeed. It is one of the highest penalties that has been sought, and should it be awarded by the court, that will have been achieved in relation to breaches of the Australian consumer law, and reflects our view as to the seriousness of the conduct that's involved here.
OK, so break down that conduct. What was it that made you pursue Optus in such a vigorous way with such a significant penalty, and ultimately that they've agreed to pay?
There was unfortunately a very wide range of poor sales conduct that impacted consumers. Some of the examples were the manipulation of credit check systems so that additional products could and were sold to consumers who could not afford them. In some instances, there was insufficient, if any, attention paid to whether there was coverage for the products in the location where consumers resided. In other instances, consumers were exposed to very high pressure selling techniques. So we saw instances where a consumer may have gone in to buy a prepay product and walked out with a number of high-end and expensive post-paid products. In another instance, a consumer who was actually outside a store was lured in and then subject to pressure selling.
So I notice that the Optus Chief Executive, Stephen Rood, today says effectively this is not what Optus stands for, and we will hold ourselves to a higher standard going forward, and also says that there have been numerous executive and senior leadership changes that have come as a result of this penalty. What I want to know, though, is clearly those people on the ground floor in these stores would not have been acting on their own, shall I say, impulses. This must have been something that was orchestrated at a much higher level inside Optus. Is that what you've discovered?
There were a number of elements that sat behind this conduct. One of the elements we were concerned about is the presence of commission sales. The ACCC's best practice guidance calls out the capacity of selling of this type to create or exacerbate vulnerability on the part of consumers, and we believe that that's what we have seen in instances here. It is also the case that Optus senior management over the period of the conduct became increasingly aware of some of the sales practices that were being engaged in, and the fact that systems and processes were not stopping those practices from occurring. Instead of quickly responding to those findings, time was taken, and that allowed the conduct to continue.
But as you and I both know, Catriona, inside organisations, there are sales competitions. There's effectively, sort of, if you like, a board up there that says who's selling the most and where. And that contributes not only to the commissions that might be gained, but also then the incentives that are there for those salespeople to behave in this way.
The sales incentives that were applicable to Optus staff and franchisee staff during this period are an element of concern here, and importantly, the undertaking, should it become operative, if the agreement is approved by the court, does contain a number of elements that relate to systems and processes, both remuneration, complaints handling, debt collection and other matters that are designed to avoid this conduct occurring again, and that includes creating disincentives to engage in some of the selling practices that have been uncovered as part of this action.
So quite often these things don't happen alone with just one company. It can be industry-wide. Have you got concerns about other telecommunications companies or other businesses with commission sales structures that are operating in similar ways?
The ACCC took action against Telstra some years ago in relation to mis-selling conduct that had some similar dimensions to the conduct in relation to Optus. The fact that it has been necessary to take this additional action was certainly a contributing factor in our view of the seriousness of this matter. We urge all telecommunications companies to pay close attention to this matter and to review their own house and make quite sure that it's in order and that they are very confident that they are not engaging in sales practices of this type.
And a $100 million penalty should certainly grab their attention. ACCC Deputy Chair Catriona Lowe, many thanks for your time.